Hello?
What are you doing?
Who is this?
Don't worry about who it is. I can see you.
How many fingers I got up?
2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1. Wait, stop. What are you
You
doing?
can't see me. Where you at? You want to play hide and seek? I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide.
You got really bad.
Toledo police say a pregnant woman is dead after a shooting in South Toledo.
How does a mother of 2, 8 months pregnant, end up murdered in her own home? What secrets lie beneath the surface of a seemingly quiet Toledo neighborhood in Ohio? On January 24, 2024, 34-year-old Tamisha Price was found dead in her residence on Norton Place, the victim of multiple gunshot wounds. Her unborn daughter, Malaysia, also perished due to complications from the shooting. 3 individuals were linked to this tragic murder case. What role did each of these individuals play in this horrifying crime? What secrets were they desperately trying to conceal? And what led to this unthinkable act of violence? Join us as we explore the intricate details of this case, uncovering the motives, the investigation, examine the evidence, and the quest for justice for Tamisha and her unborn daughter. I must warn you, this story will leave you heartbroken, so brace yourself. Welcome to Mind Twist True Crime Stories, where all our stories are based on true crimes. Kindly support us by subscribing to this channel, hit the notification bell icon so you won't miss any of our latest stories. Early in the morning of January 24th, 2024, in a quiet neighborhood on Norton Place in Toledo, Ohio, police responded to a frantic 911 call. They arrived at a scene of unimaginable horror. Inside, they found 34-year-old Tamisha Price dead. She was 8 months pregnant. Tamisha Price was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and she was about to bring new life into the world. But her story, one filled with love and hope, came to a brutal and incomprehensible end. Tamisha Price, 34 years old, was from Toledo, Ohio. She worked hard to provide for her 2 young children. Those who knew her described her as a devoted mother who prioritized her kids above all else. Her uncle, Terry Price, said it best. She was a sweetheart, a caring mother of 2 who didn't deserve this. By January of 2024, Tamisha was just weeks away from welcoming her 3rd child, as she was 8 months pregnant, a baby girl she had already named Malaysia Leanie. Friends say she spoke often of how excited she was to meet her baby. She wanted to create the best possible life for her growing family. Tamisha balanced the demands of motherhood with her job, often working long hours to ensure her children had everything they needed. Those close to her admired her determination and resilience. But behind her radiant smile, there were struggles she rarely shared. She had been navigating the complexities of co-parenting and an uncertain relationship with the father of her unborn child, Paris James. Tamisha's future seemed full of promise. She had plans for her children, hopes for her baby, and dreams she was determined to achieve. But on a cold morning in January, everything she had worked for, and everything she had hoped for, was taken from her in an instant. Why would anyone target a mother on the verge of bringing a new life into the world? Who could be capable of ending her story in such a violent way? The answer may lie in the tangled web of relationships, disputes, and secrets that surrounded Tamisha's life. And the truth is as heartbreaking as it is disturbing. It was just before dawn, January 24th, 2024. In a quiet South Toledo neighborhood in Ohio, a desperate 911 call shattered the silence. A woman had been shot. Officers were dispatched immediately. But when they arrived, what they found was far more horrifying than they could have imagined. At 4:48 a.m., Toledo police entered the home on Norton Place. Inside the modest residence, they discovered 34-year-old Tamisha Price lying in her bedroom, lifeless. She had been shot multiple times. The mother of 2, just weeks away from giving birth, was gone. Her unborn daughter, Malaysia Leanie, could not be saved. The scene was devastating. Blood stained the walls and floor of the bedroom. The home, once filled with the sounds of a bustling family, was now eerily silent.
Toledo police say a pregnant woman is dead after a shooting in South Toledo. According to the report, it happened on Norton Place near Reynolds and Airport around 5 this morning. Officers got a call about a person shot. When they got to the scene, they found the pregnant woman, Tamisha Price, suffering from at least one gunshot wound. The victim was pronounced dead at the scene.
Authorities quickly secured the area, combing through the house for clues. Outside, neighbors began to gather, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. They kept to themselves, one resident said. This isn't the kind of place where things like this happen. Tamisha's family arrived soon after, their grief evident. Her uncle, Terry Price, stood outside the house, struggling to comprehend the tragedy. She was about to have a baby, he said, his voice breaking. None of this makes sense. News of the murder spread quickly through the neighborhood. Neighbors described Tamisha as a caring mother, a sweetheart. The shock and disbelief were evident. How could such a brutal crime happen in their peaceful community? The immediate question on everyone's mind: who could have done this? And more importantly, why? Police launched a homicide investigation, but questions loomed large. Who would do this to a pregnant mother? Was this a random act of violence or something far more personal? As investigators began to gather evidence, a disturbing narrative started to emerge, one that pointed to betrayal, secrets, and a plot involving someone that no one saw coming. As the sun rose over South Toledo, detectives faced a daunting task. A pregnant mother of 2 was dead, her life stolen in a violent attack. But this wasn't a random act of violence. From the beginning, the evidence pointed to something far more deliberate. Inside Tamisha Price's home, investigators began their work. They collected physical evidence, meticulously documenting the scene. Witnesses were interviewed, and the surrounding area was canvassed. It didn't take long for a disturbing picture to form. One of the first breakthroughs came from a 911 call placed by someone who suspected Paris James, the father of Tamisha's unborn child, was involved. Officers located James later that morning, and during questioning, he made a stunning admission. He had been at Tamisha's house earlier that night. Police affidavits revealed a motive. James had been disputing the paternity of Tamisha's baby, Malaysia. Investigators uncovered text messages, surveillance footage, and witness accounts suggesting escalating tensions between the two. As the evidence mounted, 2 more names entered the investigation: Jerry Scott, 26, and Shatwia Triplett, 34. But the involvement of Jerry Scott added a new layer of complexity. What was his connection to James, and what role did he play in Tamisha's murder? The investigation also brought Shatwia Triplett, James's live-in girlfriend, into the spotlight. She was charged with obstructing justice. Allegedly, she provided a false alibi for James, claiming he was with her at the time of the murder. This wasn't an impulsive act. It was calculated, planned, and executed with chilling precision. It was no longer just about one man. This was a web of relationships, secrets, and lies. Detectives also obtained video footage and phone records tying James and Scott to the crime. Witnesses described suspicious movements in the early morning hours near the house on Norton Place. Each piece of evidence strengthened the case against them. But how far were these suspects willing to go to cover their tracks? And what other secrets might they be hiding? But here's the most disturbing question. If this was a planned murder, how long had it been in the works? What conversations took place? What steps were taken? And who knew what? The arrest warrant explicitly stated that James had planned to shoot and kill Tamisha. As the investigation deepened, the full scope of their plan began to unravel, leading to arrests, betrayal, and courtroom revelations. But the question remained: would justice truly be served? In every crime, there are perpetrators and motives. The investigation into Tamisha Price's murder quickly identified 3 key players. Each had a role, and each choice they made led to that fateful morning. The first was Paris James, a 35-year-old man with a complicated connection to Tamisha. Investigators revealed that James was the father of Tamisha's unborn child, Malaysia. But instead of celebrating the impending arrival of his daughter, James harbored resentment. He disputed the paternity and, according to police, saw Tamisha's pregnancy as a threat to his life as he knew it. Text messages between the two showed tension, arguments, and a final, unshakable conclusion. James wanted her and the baby gone. But James didn't act alone. The plot required more than just one person's hands. Jerry Scott, 26 years old, was a trusted associate of James. Police allege Scott's role went far beyond mere knowledge of the crime. Charging documents stated he actively helped James plan the attack, knowing full well the consequences. Surveillance footage placed Scott near the crime scene in the hours before and after the murder. Witnesses described him as the enforcer, willing to do what James couldn't or wouldn't do alone. And then there was Shatwia Triplett. At 34, Triplett wasn't directly involved in the act itself, but her role proved critical in the aftermath. As James's live-in girlfriend, Triplett provided a false alibi, telling police that James had been with her the entire night. Investigators later discovered that Triplett's claim was not only false but a deliberate attempt to obstruct justice. Phone records and witness statements exposed her lies, unraveling her story piece by piece. 3 people, 3 decisions, 1 deadly outcome. But was it loyalty, fear, or something else that bound them together in this terrible plan? In any criminal investigation, evidence is the key to unlocking the truth. In the case of Tamisha Price's murder, investigators meticulously gathered every piece of information they could find. Surveillance footage played a crucial role. Though the specific details of what the footage showed have not been publicly released, it was clearly significant enough to implicate Paris James and Jerry Scott. Perhaps one of the most significant pieces of evidence was Paris James's own admission. According to police documents, James admitted to being at Tamisha's home around the time of the murder. This admission placed him at the scene of the crime. But did it prove his guilt? That would be up to the prosecution to demonstrate. The coroner's report provided the grim details of Tamisha's death. She died from multiple gunshot wounds. A separate fetal death certificate was issued for her unborn daughter, Malaysia Lini. The cause of death for the baby: complications of maternal gunshot wounds. The coroner's report confirmed the brutality of the crime and underscored the tragic loss of 2 lives. The search warrants obtained by the 13 Action News I-team revealed that James was disputing his potential paternity of the child. This provided a potential motive, but it didn't fully explain the involvement of Jerry Scott or the alleged premeditation. The investigation had reached a critical point. The police had their suspects. Now it was time for justice to take its course. The arrests came in late February 2024. First, Paris James was taken into custody. Then Jerry Scott was apprehended. Finally, Shatwia Triplett was also arrested.
People are now charged in connection to the deadly shooting of a pregnant woman and her unborn child. 26-year-old Jerry Scott was arrested and charged with 2 counts of premeditated aggravated murder. 34-year-old Shatwia Triplett was arrested and charged with obstructing justice. A third suspect, Paris James, turned himself into police today. Police had been looking for him. He is also charged with 2 counts of premeditated aggravated murder. The shooting happened on Norton Place near Reynolds and Airport. That was back on January 24th. Police said the shooting was planned. The coroner says Tamisha Price died from multiple gunshot wounds.
The charges were severe. Paris James and Jerry Scott were both charged with 2 counts of premeditated aggravated murder. This charge carries the possibility of life in prison. Shatwia Triplett faced a charge of obstructing justice. This stemmed from her alleged false alibi for Paris James. The bond amounts set for James and Scott were significant, $2 million each. This reflected the severity of the charges and the perceived flight risk. Triplett's bond was set at a lower amount, which she posted, leading to her release pending trial. The initial court appearances were brief but tense. James and Scott appeared before a judge where their bonds were confirmed and their cases were set to proceed. Triplett also made her initial court appearance. The legal process was just beginning. The prosecution would have to present compelling evidence to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And the defense would have their chance to challenge that evidence. But there was something else. News reports indicated that James and Scott were not cooperating. They weren't giving up any information. What were they hiding? Beneath the surface of this horrific crime lies a motive as old as time, a dispute over paternity. But in this case, that dispute turned deadly. But this wasn't simply a matter of denying responsibility. The evidence suggests a far more calculated and disturbing plan. According to charging documents, Jerry Scott participated in the planning and execution of the plan that resulted in the deaths of Tamisha and her unborn daughter, Malaysia Lini. This paints a picture of a carefully orchestrated act of violence. The idea that two individuals would conspire to commit such a heinous crime is difficult to comprehend, but the evidence points to a chilling collaboration. This case is particularly heartbreaking because it involves the loss of not one, but two lives. Tamisha, a mother of two, was just weeks away from welcoming her baby girl into the world. The death of Malaysia Lini is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of violence against pregnant women. It's a tragedy that reverberates through families and communities. But what exactly was the nature of the relationship between James and Scott? How did they know each other? And what led them to allegedly carry out this horrific act together? And if James is the father of the unborn child, who then is the father of the other two grown boys? Why did he deny paternity to the point of planning her demise? Was she cheating on him? Dear viewers, kindly share what you think about this tragedy in the comment. Join in the conversation as we demand justice for the victims. A young mother was taken, two children left behind, an unborn baby never given a chance at life. How do you measure the ripples of such a loss? Tamisha Price's family was left shattered. Her uncle, Terry Price, described her as a caring, hardworking mother who only wanted to provide a better future for her children. His voice, trembling with grief, echoed the sentiment of all who knew her. She was a sweetheart. None of this makes sense. Tamisha's two surviving children, now without their mother, faced an uncertain future. Those who knew her spoke of her dedication to them, a dedication that had defined her life. Now that stability is gone. But the pain doesn't end with her family. The quiet Toledo neighborhood where this tragedy unfolded was shaken to its core. The quiet neighborhood on Norton Place was forever changed. The sense of security shattered. The residents were left grappling with the reality that such violence could occur in their midst. For Tamisha's family, the loss is permanent. But through their pain, they hope others can find a way to prevent this from happening. After the arrests, the focus shifted to the legal system. Would justice be served for Tamisha Price and her unborn daughter, Malaysia Lini? The outcome of the trials would determine the fate of the accused and offer some measure of closure, however imperfect, to Tamisha's family. This case also raises important questions about how the justice system handles cases involving pregnant victims. The loss of an unborn child is a devastating consequence of violence, yet the legal system's response can vary. Some states have laws that specifically recognize the unborn child as a victim in cases of violence against pregnant women. This raises complex legal and ethical considerations. The case of Tamisha Price underscores the need for continued discussion and reform in this area. How can the justice system better protect pregnant women and recognize the full extent of the harm caused by these crimes? While information on the final trial outcomes for James, Scott and Triplet is limited in easily accessible sources, it is important to remember that these legal processes can take considerable time. This story, sadly, is not unique. Domestic violence continues to be a pervasive issue. If you or someone you know needs help, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Think about it. How many others are suffering in silence, unsure of where to turn for help? What is justice in a case like this? Is it merely the arrest of those responsible, or is there something deeper that we need to address as a society? These stories are difficult to tell, but it's important to remember the human cost of violence and to seek justice for those who have been affected. We encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments section below. However, we ask that you please be respectful in your comments. This is a sensitive case involving the loss of a life, and it's crucial that we treat Tamisha Price, her family, and everyone involved with the utmost respect and sensitivity. If you found this video informative and you're interested in more true crime content handled with sensitivity and respect, please consider subscribing to our channel. By subscribing and hitting the notification bell, You'll be notified whenever we upload new videos. We strive to bring you thoroughly researched and ethically presented true crime stories, always prioritizing respect for the victims and their families. Our thoughts remain with Tamisha's family and loved ones during this incredibly difficult time. We hope that this video has shed light on her story and contributed to a greater understanding of the impact of such tragedies. Thanks for watching till the end, and see you in our next story.